Include sound screen. So can everybody see that okay? Yeah, I'm hoping that somebody says yes. Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Fabulous, thank you. Right, we'll start with this. So I'm Dr. Melanie Stevens. I'm an Associate Professor in Adult Nursing at the University of Salford, and along with my other Associate Professor colleagues, we've created the Greater Manchester Practice Education Centre of Excellence Research and Innovation Guide for nurses, midwives and allied health professionals. So over the last, I'd say about 4 or 5 years, across Greater Manchester, academics and clinicians have been working together on NHS England funded projects. And these have all been managed by Carol LeBlanc.
I'm Carol LeBlanc. I'm head of the Nursing Midwifery and AHP workforce team for Greater Manchester. One of the key things that we've set up over the last few years is the Practice Education Centre for Excellence, which is a group of people from our HEIs, our universities and our providers across the services, so that is just secondary care providers and primary care and social care providers. What we wanted to do as part of that group is really raise the profile of the work that people are doing.
So the vision was, is after doing all of these fantastic projects, is that we would then create a guide for nurses, for AHPs, for midwives, so it was like a one-stop shop, a booklet, a website, so they could find out what research and innovation is and then know how to progress on the journey of starting a research project to actually publishing it and disseminating it to the general public. It's been really brilliant working together with the other associate professors. So we've got some collective knowledge and skills in creating this research and innovation guide. We actually made one for the staff in the university's School of Health and Society and recognised that this was really good practice. So if you'd like to find out more about the guide, if you actually go to the link that should be on your screens now, and what you'll find is all the information. We've got it in downloadable formats, and also it's accessible for people who maybe want to listen to the book or take it away and read it at your leisure. We also have an evaluation form because we'd really like your feedback on why have you used it, how have you found it, so we can always make improvements and keep it up to date. So we really hope you enjoy using this research and innovation guide as much as we've really enjoyed putting it together. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and then share a different screen. So just to say, somebody's got their microphone on, we can just hear what you're saying. I don't know if you want to just turn your microphones off. So obviously we've made our introductions. We really want to share with you this morning and launch this research and innovation guide. We call it a journey because we're all on this journey. Anybody who's interested in evidence-based practice is on a journey of how do we then incorporate it into our clinical practice. As I always say to students when we first interviewed of why we actually come into this profession, it's usually because we want to serve people who are at the most vulnerable parts of their lives in order to help them achieve better health, better outcomes, a good death. So what we want to do is help those who are interested or have never really thought about research and innovation before, and give some guidance, some support, where to look, so you can actually think about it for yourselves. This presentation we're going to share, there'll be other members of the team presenting some information, so they will join the conversation. And right at the very end, we've got an opportunity for question and answers, and I will be showing the link to the evaluation form and the question and the guide itself. So first of all, welcome. So if you're a nurse, you're a midwife, or you're an allied health professional, and you're really interested in research and innovation, or you're on actually a career journey and you need some assistance, then we're hoping that you use this guide. It's for you. Obviously, we've just introduced the team of researchers, but we'd also like to thank the research and innovation teams in many of the organisations across Greater Manchester, and they've provided really robust information for us. They've been part of the peer review process, and they've really helped develop this guide because we wanted to create something for Greater Manchester, so that we didn't sit in splendid isolation, that research and innovation is for all of us. We produced it to help you navigate research and innovation from maybe just taking your first steps right through to actually publication and disseminating your findings and having an impact out there in clinical practice. So first of all, I'd like to hand over to Carol just for a few words of why she feels it's really important for this guide for Greater Manchester.
Good morning, everybody. So why do I feel it's really important? And why did I sort of promote and encourage us having a subgroup of part of the Greater Manchester Practice Education Centre for Excellence? The key thing here is that what we wanted to do through that group and from myself is really raise the profile of the work that everybody's doing on top of their everyday practice in a lot of cases. We have had over the last few years monies and funding through from what was HTE and what is now NHSE to deliver on a number of projects, from capacity, improving practice learning opportunities, developing our workforce, and lots of people from all sectors, that's primary care, social care and secondary care, all wanted to do projects. They had ideas and thoughts about how they wanted to improve or review existing work. And I think key for that for me was, well, how do we help them celebrate that? How do we help them feel accomplished? That when the end of that project came, what was in it for them, as well as delivering on the project, but how can we help them think of research first or publication first, to help them celebrate that and really make a difference with all the work that we're doing. And I know those that have been around in GM for an awful long time will know that we do an awful lot of work in GM, but we're really not good at showcasing and celebrating and really making people feel have evidence to suggest that this was all the work that they've done. So part of this and pulling this piece of work together was to get people on the ground who didn't think that they would be able to publish, who wouldn't think they'd be able to do a piece of research, to think that they're probably doing some of it already, but actually how can we make it much more structured, and how can we put enough people in place so that they feel supported on this journey of either publishing and doing pieces of research. And that's why I've promoted and encouraged doing this guide for us for Greater Manchester.
Thanks, Carol. Really important message there from Carol. Thanks very much. So I'm going to hand over to Lorraine, who's now going to talk around a few slides for us.
Hi everyone. I just a little bit of background about myself first, if that's okay. Just very brief. I'm not going to bore you, but I've been involved in teaching nurses, midwives, and allied health professionals research and research methodologies and evidence-based practice for about 17 years, and that makes me sound very old, and I am quite old, but but this is absolutely wonderful to see this many people here who are interested in learning more about being involved in research. It's really inspiring, so it's really good to see. This question here is this guide that we've produced for you, for professionals like you. It absolutely is. It's been developed for everyone, no matter where they are in their career, to help you think about how you might get started in that research and innovation journey that Melanie talked about at the beginning. It very much is a journey, and I think it's important to understand not to have too high an expectation on yourself at the beginning, but equally so, aim high in it ultimately, because we are we offer so much to the world of research in terms of our experience clinically and professionally, and that can impact massively on our patients and the care of our patients, and that's really, really important. So yes, this guide is for everybody, and there you will see as these slides go on where you might fit in terms of where you want to start accessing the information within it. Okay, next slide, please, Melanie. So thank you. So the sections of the guide, then it's a website that we originally developed a booklet, but it's been produced as a website, and I think that's actually a really useful tool because you'll be able to dip in and out of it and get quickly to the part that you want to get to. But it's split into sections. Sorry, I think somebody might have the microphone on. I just don't want you to record anything that you don't want recording. So it's split into sections. That's and they're here on the screen. And I'm not going to go through all of these now. These are just so that you can see them. We're going to go through them all one by one. But basically, it goes from right at the beginning. So understanding what research and innovation is, to planning your research and scholarly pathway right at the end of that journey, and in between things like getting started in small projects, getting started in larger projects. So the guide is developed for everybody. Next slide, please, Melanie. Thank you. So understanding research and innovation then. So what is research and what is innovation? So normally, if I was teaching a classroom here, I'd ask you what is research and what is innovation? What do you think it is? And you'd get a range of answers to that about it's solving a problem, it's finding out new information. And I think for all of us, that's probably our original motivation in getting involved in research. I think all of the researchers in the room in the virtual room will corroborate that. I'm sure that it was about seeing a problem in practice, and I'm sure that's where your driver will come from. It's seeing something that you think, we can do this better, we can do this differently, this to benefit more people, etc. So I think that's really important to think about what you think research and innovation is. We also, in the booklet, think about these different strategies that there are across the trusts in the region, in Greater Manchester, and the organisations, and they all have a very similar ethos and value, but they're interesting to look at the differences between them as well. Important is also to talk to people who can help you in your journey in research. So making connections, building networks, being brave and going asking the question, being brave and going saying, I'd like to be involved in that. I think that's a top tip that I think a few of us would give you. There are a number of organisations that I think are important for you to be aware of outside of your local, but also within the local region. So there's the NIHR Applied Research Collaboration for Greater Manchester, and they can offer you lots of support and advice. I would encourage you to look at the website. There's the NHS Innovation Service, which again, I'd encourage you to look at the website. There are links within this guide for you to access them directly. The National Institute of Health and Care Research, I think once you start looking at research and bidding for research monies, then that would be a place that you would be visiting fairly regularly, and it's definitely a website that you could probably familiarise yourself with before you get to that point. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say it's not necessarily the easiest website to navigate sometimes. So I think that's important to have a look at and try and work your way around it and see all the opportunities that there are and what there might be in terms of opportunities that might fit you. And they provide all sorts of training and courses and monies for fellowships from pre-doctoral through to postdoctoral, as well as for particular themed calls for research projects. So it's really worth exploring that website. The same with the School for Social Care Research, which is part of the NIHR as well. So have a look there for the similar opportunities. I think it's also important to think about, so we all as professionals, as healthcare professionals, go through some sort of validation, revalidation process at a regular basis. For nursing, it's 3 yearly. We provide information about how we've kept ourselves up to date, what we've been involved in, etc., how many hours practice we've done. And I know it's similar for AHPs and definitely the same for midwives. So this activity, any activity that involves research, learning about research, can also help provide evidence for your revalidation. So I would, if you do any of the courses that are on any of the websites or you have access to, then always keep a record of those, the dates you did it, the hours you did on those courses, etc. And maybe even think about doing a reflection around those in readiness for when you have to do your revalidation portfolio. The other thing I would suggest is you look at any opportunities there are advertised within your own organisations in terms of getting involved in research. My research career started when I was a neonatal nurse, and I got involved in the delivery of a study a long time ago now. It's so long ago. For those of you that know anything about surfactant, it was one of the first surfactant trials in neonates, so it was a while back, and that really switched my button on, if you like, to want to be involved in research, so much so that after a few years I became a clinical research nurse. And that's one way you can be involved in research, but you can also be involved in research at a much more grassroots level by encouraging, engaging patients who might want to be involved in research, by just going to speak to people who are delivering the research to find out how you might be able to support them with their work. So look for opportunities around roles, specific roles, maybe a research champion role, something like that as well, if it's something that you're interested in. And likewise, look at the training and development opportunities within your organisations. I'm sure, and I know from the guide, there are lots of different opportunities available to different trusts and organisations, but they will all provide a good starting point, and also an opportunity to build on knowledge for those of you that have already engaged in research and innovation activity. I think that's that slide finished. There we go. So getting started with developing your research and innovation activity then. I think the really important thing, and I mentioned this earlier, is about finding something that you're passionate about and wanting to make a change, and solving a problem, solving something that you see happening in clinical practice, and you, like I said before, that you really think, I need to do something about this, this isn't working, or why is this happening? And that will then lead you to sort of start to develop a research question. And what I would do is at your opportunity, say at your appraisal, your PDR, DPR, whatever it's called, in your organisation, is to mention that you're interested and you're keen in getting started or developing a research journey for yourself. And that way, your manager, whoever's doing your appraisal, can signpost you to different resources, courses, support, put you in touch with people that might actually start that off. Look for early career research groups, or even things like journal clubs, which can be a way of networking with like-minded people that can sometimes start you off on that research journey. Once you start down the research path, it's really useful to set up a profile, and you can do that through a number of different platforms. So you can use something like, the common ones like LinkedIn, etc. But also things like ResearchGate, Google Scholar. I'm just trying to think of the other one. It's just, my mind's just gone blank a second. But I'll add them in the chat if they're not in the guide anyway. But set up a research profile so that people can see what you're interested in, see what skills you might have or you want to develop, and then that might also lead to further opportunities. And then, as I've said already, really important to talk to people, let them know what you're interested in, what you'd like to do, how you might think you'd want to grow your research, and network, and be brave. Go knocking on doors, go, sending emails, and none of us mind when people ask us about a research opportunity. That's partly why we do the jobs that we do, is to engage people, professionals, fellow colleagues, etc., in research, and we're really passionate about that. So get out there and talk to people. And I did mean to say at the beginning of my set of slides, any questions, put them in the chat or save them for the end. So if you do have a question now that you has cropped up while I've been talking, then please feel free to put them in the chat or ask at the end of the session. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thanks, Lorraine. And as we move on, the other associate profs and Claire's prof, if you want to jump in, please feel free to have your cameras on and jump in. So the next bit of the guide is all about developing research and innovation knowledge and skills, because we've all had to start somewhere. So we felt it was really important within the guide to think about, well, first of all, what support do you need? So this is about appraising against something called the research curriculum vitae. So it's a really useful website which helps you as maybe as a novice or an experienced researcher to actually think about all the knowledge and skills and expertise you need, and then doing a SWOT analysis. So thinking about what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what opportunities could be created by talking to people, as Lorraine has eloquently put, within your organisation or out with of your organisation, including the fabulous library services. So it's really important to do that kind of SWOT analysis and think about, what this is my problem, do a SWOT analysis about my research skills, and then look at what support you can access as your actions and resources for your yearly PD appraisal process, PDP, PDR. We've put information about all the different kinds of support locally, and we've acknowledged that obviously many of our colleagues work in social care, and their access to maybe NHS knowledge and library services is limited. So therefore, we've also put links to where you can actually find published academic research, which is free and easily accessible, because we know that if you work for a smaller organisation that doesn't have a postgrad library or a research and development team, then you might still want to conduct a study or have an innovation idea or address a problem and have the solution and want to investigate the solution to that. Well, we wanted to make sure you felt supported too, that this is for everybody, not, it's not health care related, it's health and care, social care in particular related. And then we have a section called Getting Started with Small Projects. And as Lorraine suggested, and if you talk to any of the professoriate, we all started with small projects. We all had small ideas. Carol, she's got to blue sky, I think, but then bring lots of small ideas together to fit the big idea. So we've given steps of the process, from scoping your idea to seeking support, both within your organisation and out with of that, how you might create a project proposal and plan, because it might be that you've applied for some funding or there's plans written for your organisation. It's really good to look for pots of money to help fund these opportunities, and where this money can be found, and then also protecting your intellectual property. We're very fortunate within the professoriate to actually support master's students and PhD students who actually have thought about new innovations. I currently am supervising someone who's got a great idea, who's who's actually applied for money to protect their intellectual property in regards to a new wound care device. So there's lots of opportunities to be found, and we know that there are lots of innovation from across nursing, midwifery and allied health professions. We also have a section called Bidding for Larger Projects, and this gives you the resources and information about bidding processes and where the kind of organisations who allow you to bid for larger amounts of money. And also then once a grant, if you've got a grant and it's been successful, what are the research regulatory approvals? And I have to say that it's been fantastic working across the different organisations developing this guide to make sure our wording makes sense to us as researchers, and also for people who are new. This is an early career kind of activity, and what you need the hoops to jump through to actually meet the regulatory approvals when conducting any research. So I'm going to hand over to Christine.
Hello, everybody. I'm a bit overwhelmed with so many people here, so it's lovely to be in everybody's company today. So I'm going to talk about the slide about getting published. Publications is a really important part of the research process. It's really important that we disseminate all the work we've done. And I think there's an awful lot of work that's done by practitioners that's well worthy of publication, but never actually gets into print because people don't know how to get the support to do this. I know when I was a practitioner, there was quite a few things I was involved with that I never actually published because I didn't really know where to start. I feel very fortunate that along the way I've been able to publish quite a bit, and I think if I could look at my go back to sort of being 18, 19 when I started out as an adult nurse at Manchester Royal Infirmary, what I've managed to achieve, I'd be really shocked. But I've achieved that by being able to work with amazing people and get support along the way. And I sort of want to make that point really, that there's lots of support out there if you seek out the opportunities and access the resources that's available to you. So getting started with writing for publication, first of all, look at what resources are around you to help you and who that might be. Well, you've got your peers. Quite often the project you're working on, you might be working with other people together, sit down together and try and make a plan on what you want to do and how you want to publish or disseminate what you've actually been working on. Access academics in universities as well, because it's part of our role to publish and disseminate, and we've got experiences and that we can share with you and support you with, particularly your supervisors. If you've been doing a master's project or you've written an essay on your initial degree program that you've done well with, and the markers commented that this would be worthy of publication. So the supervisors in particular that you've been working with will be a great source of help. Don't forget the library. The librarians that we have in the library will also be a massive big source of information and support for you. They will know the journals. They will be able to offer writing courses for you and point you in the direction of support that's available. They'll also be able to help you with literature searching, because it might well be that you've got to do some further information searching in order to prepare your publication. So I think you'll find the librarians will put on courses, there'll be online courses, and they'll be able to help you along the way. The next thing to do is think about which journal or where you want to publish. And I think there's lots of different levels of publications. And I think it's really important to start off with something lower level and work your way up. My very first publication, and I won't tell you how long ago it was, but was with a colleague, and we wrote a publication for the Royal College of Midwives Journal, and it was about a new course that we'd developed for qualified midwives. And we were so proud of ourselves when this was finally in print. But by working together, we were able to support each other, and get that article actually published. My next journal article was an essay from the Masters in Public Health course that I was doing, and I had a good mark for it, and I decided to publish it, and that was an essay on smoking in pregnancy in a professional journal. So those kind of publications are great for getting you started and also building up your confidence, because if you're not used to writing academically, it can be quite daunting, I think. And I'm not a natural academic. I've had to learn how to write and develop my skills over the years by, sort of by practicing, getting feedback, and so on and so forth. So look at the range of journals and publications that are available. They'll all have different audiences. Look at the type of articles that are published in them. So there'll obviously be research, there'll be literature reviews, there'll be opinion papers, and there'll be what I call concept papers, which are about ideas. So each of those particular types of article will have specific guidelines. So it's really important that you look at the author guidelines and you follow them to the T. Each journal's author guidelines differ, right down to font size and spacing on the page, headings. Follow them to a T. They'll have different word limits. Some will be 2,000 words, some will be 7,000 words. They will vary considerably. So follow the author guidelines, get advice. If you're working together in a small team, that's great, because you can work together and support each other. But if you're working on your own, find someone who'll mentor you and provide you with support. Now, a lot of people, and when I suggest, well, I think this really is worthy of publication, they say, well, I haven't got the time to do it. And I sort of want to try and turn that on its head, really, because I think it's really important that we think about how we manage our time and how we prioritize what we're doing. And I found that by managing my time more effectively, I've been able to get more things done. And I've learned recently about writing retreats, for example, where you can go for a couple of hours and just sit and write. So you'll go in a room, it'll be complete silence, and it's surprising what you can get done. I've also learned about the Pomodoro technique, which sounds a bit fancy, but basically it's a strategy to manage your time. So you work intensively for half an hour, and then you have a 5-minute break. And I've started doing that, and I've really been surprised of what I've been able to achieve. So if you think that you're struggling with time, think about how you could manage it. And this is where a mentor could come in and perhaps help you and give you deadlines to try and get to. So I've already said follow the guidelines to a T, because obviously you've got to get your report and your manuscript ready for publication. When you submit to the journal, it will go for what's called peer review. It will be anonymised peer review, and it's quite often 2 or 3 people who would look at that paper for you. So when you submit the manuscript to the journal, there are strict instructions how you prepare this. I mean, it can take a couple of hours sometimes just to prepare the manuscript for uploading. They particularly won't want your name, the author's names on the main body. They'll want an abstract that's separate. They'll want a letter, etc. So make sure you've got enough time to do that. The editor will probably receive the manuscript initially and will screen it. Hopefully they will send it for anonymised peer review. But don't be upset if the journal article comes back to you from the editor saying it's not suitable for publication. This is not unusual, and it's happened to me lots and lots of times. But quite often the editor might give you a few sentences of feedback, which can be really helpful about developing the manuscript ready to go to the next journal. So sometimes we do have to send our manuscripts to a couple of editors before it actually finally gets into the system for anonymised peer review. So the peer reviewers will send their feedback to the editor, who will collate it, and then they will send it back to the main author of the paper. And sometimes this feedback can be a bit harsh. I hope feedback that I've done has never been harsh, and it can be a bit of a shock. And the first time this happened to me with getting some feedback that was sort of a little bit on the harsh side, my supervisor, it was my master's dissertation survey research that I published. My supervisor said, put it in your drawer, Christine, and don't look at it till tomorrow. I scanned it, put it in the drawer, and the next day I did feel a lot more positive about it. So give yourself a chance to process the feedback and take it on board. And then look at the feedback and split it down into sections. I always put it into a table and work on, put a section in a row and work on a section at a time to sort of chip away at it. And then obviously get feedback on how I've addressed the get feedback from other people on how I've addressed that feedback and the points they've asked me to include before I resend it. And hopefully, after you've resent it, the paper will get published. So don't be put off by publication. I would suggest that you find someone to support you who has already published before, because they will be able to guide you, take you along the steps, step by step, will be able to give you feedback on your writing style, on how your ideas are coming across. They'll help you to meet the author guidelines and prepare your manuscript. Look for opportunities to manage your time, like writing retreats, writing workshops, or think about using the Pomodoro style, because it's really transformed my life since I've learned about it. And I only learned about it last year. So, you know, you're always learning all the time, really. And I think Lorraine's advice on developing your academic voice is really important. Develop a profile. So, you know, she mentioned LinkedIn. If you've got opportunity to develop a web page where you work, you know, you can write your interests on there. Get out and about to conferences, to workshops, meet other people, to help develop your peer support network, and hopefully you'll soon be able to publish and get all the amazing work that's happening out there for other people to read about.
Oh, thanks, Christine. Really important advice there that you can find on the Research and Innovation Guide. The next thing is about sharing your research and scholarly activity, and I'm hoping some of my colleagues will join in with this, because there's lots of opportunities, but it's thinking initially about who your audience is going to be. Are you presenting and disseminating your information for other clinicians, other professionals, or is it actually for the public or a lay audience, or even for children? You know, we work and span across the life course. So it's thinking about who your audience is. And then developing a dissemination plan. I don't know if you want to come in here, Celeste.
Yeah, it was just a link to the thing about the audience with the things that Christine's been saying about publication as well. Is I don't know whether it's true for the audience. Obviously, we haven't met any of you in person, but a lot of what sometimes stops people from publishing for the first time is a sense that they need to have something really grand, like Nobel Prize winning, to kind of to publish. That they need to have something that's gold. And actually, if you think about the things you read yourself or the things that inform your practice or that help you, it's often when you read things where somebody else has struggled with the same thing as you and had a go at solving the problem for it, or a case study of something unusual that because you are working with something unusual and you can't find the guidelines, or so it's that idea of who your audience is can really help you think about getting over your worries about publishing as well. He's thinking about, well, actually, the best advice anybody ever gave to me was that publishing is all you're doing is contributing to a conversation. So you don't have to have the best thing or the newest thing or the brightest and the shiniest thing. You need to have something to say that if it adds to everything else that people are saying, it moves the conversation forwards a little bit. And I think that's true for other types of dissemination too. But I guess, yeah, it just made me think of it when you were saying, sorry, Melanie.
No, please jump in, everybody. It's really important. And this is the lovely thing about working with such a fantastic associate professor team, professoria, is we contribute to each other's knowledge. And then thinking about your dissemination plan and where you want to disseminate. And is it in a kind of professional journal, or is it a policy document that you might want to send to a local MP or to the government to influence policy? Or is it actually you want to share that with the general public? So, for example, one of the things I like to do every November as part of the Manchester Science Festival, and Science Festival is all about sharing research and innovation, is I like to go on to the into Great Piccadilly train station, and actually not on the platform but underneath the information desk. I like to have a stand there with my colleagues who I've been working with over the year with research that we've been conducting and sharing that with the general public with some interactive ideas. And Network Rail have been very kind each year to allow me to do that. We've got a good working relationship, and this means that over a course of a Saturday, I'm reaching out to about 300 people who are passing by usually, and we give them stickers and sweets and things like that to attract them in. Obviously, there's always an incentive, and we talk about our research and say it in words that people can understand and where they can find it and where they can access it, because it's really important. If you think about carers, we think about people with different conditions, different equipment, different interventions, that they're aware of this. So a good dissemination plan is really important. And now I'm going to hand over to Christina now, because she's our digital expert about different formats and language and modes. So Christina, do you want to jump in and just share some of your experiences?
Oh, thank you, Melanie. Of course. I mean, when it comes to, and I think I sat here listening, and it's really important that when we write to think of the story we tell. And I think this is where digital helps us, is to be able to tell that story, but also is to tell that story in different ways and in different formats, but also what allows us to reach different audiences, because some people might prefer to read text, other people might prefer to listen to a podcast or watch a video or a how-to video on YouTube as well. So I think in terms of different formats, they are really linked to the platforms as well. It's really important that, I think the first thing I would say is choose your audience. And then after you choose your audience, think of what story do you want to tell, or the other way around. You can start with the story and then think of the audience. And then based on that, look at the platforms and which platform allows you to tell the story and target a specific audience. So I would say, like, I do a lot of work on online communities of practice. So when I set up on the initial journey, I'm thinking, okay, so who's is my target? Is it the young people? Because I know if it's young people, then I'll have to go and think of explore TikTok and explore Instagram and explore Snapchat. Is it more of the kind of over 40 population that I'm targeting, and then is thinking more of Facebook? In the past, I used to say X quite a lot, but I think I didn't say X. I said Twitter. So nowadays I'm reconsidering that. I'll not say much about today because I'm still thinking whether I'll stay on X or leave. But we also have now, massive growing opportunities in LinkedIn. And this has been mentioned before. So I think it's consider the story, think of the audiences you target, and then where it's reaching audiences in the places they inhabit. That's how I would put this. So if it's young people, think of how do I disseminate my information in a nice image on Instagram, for example, or if you want to provide more educational or more in depth, consider like YouTube. So think of the audience, think of the platforms, and then see how you can work with people who can support you to disseminate this in the right manner as well. So we know that again, something else to consider is the attention span online. It's not point having like an hour-long video when we know we have like a 3 seconds now, and it's attention span. So just think of all this before you because we do have the opportunities. We kind of need to think of how we call them the technicalities associated with platform and associated with online audiences. And again, we are here to help, and I think the professional networks are growing. So I see a lot of support being shared on ResearchGate, on academia, on LinkedIn Learning. And why not create your own community? Because I think this is really important, and that's how we support each other at Salford, and we learn from each other. So I'll stop here, but I'm always happy to answer questions and help in any way I can.
Oh, thanks, Christina. Gemma, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to say that I think for all of us, one time when we have time in our lives, we could all tell you about our own personal journeys through research, because we've all gone on a very different route, I have to say. Like people have arrived at this destination in very different ways. And certainly, my journey was a very slow burner to start off with as a staff nurse, for the longest serving staff nurse, I think, on the adolescent unit. And then I was very fortunate about seeing opportunities, because I was lucky, because there was things like opportunities to do fellowships. There was grants around for nurses, things like that. And then there became this thing where nurse consultancy, so that nurses didn't have to become managers, which pleased me no end, and that we were able to stay in practice and work in the clinical area. So everybody, you've got to seize those opportunities, I would say, because they're often, I didn't really know that those kind of things were around. But when I've decided I wanted to, I'm in the closest proximity to the patients, and I kind of know what's going wrong in the real life, often, which I would say a lot of our other colleagues might not be aware of, kind of things that go on around young people's mental health. So I was in the dream times where you could be a nurse consultant and you could stay in practice for about 35 years. So I didn't really get to the university till much later on in life. But I think a key thing is to always involve the clients themselves at every stage of that research. Do you know what I mean? Because they are the experts on what needs to be done. And I found that was a really important thing, is to think really about how you can involve young people in both publications, dissemination, presentations, all those kind of things. And that's now researchers, the researchers or grants and people like that really want young people to be principal investigators. Well, people with lived experience to be principal investigators, and because they know what the real world challenges are. Do you know what I mean? And certainly, we have got a very toxic issue coming up for young people around transgender. And so, let's hear from the young people who identify as transgender about that. So if you can, always involve, the young people or whichever your client group or your population is in whatever aspects, because that does help. I would say it makes a lot of sense. And do be a bit cheeky and a bit brave and knock on doors, because, you know, that does help as well, and find out what's going on within. So, like, for example, there's things that go on within GMW, the trust where I worked for many years, that I didn't even know existed until I started to cast out my net. And then I found out, but very sadly, I ended up in a research governance group on a Friday afternoon, which wasn't terribly great. It was like, does this have to happen on Friday? But you could hear about other people's research. So there's research governance groups that you could ask to volunteer and attend within trusts and things like that. And I suppose, you know, just being really thankful that, you know, nurses, they do now see that nurses are in the closest proximity to clients and therefore might have a lot to say and add to the agenda. So just thinking about us all, we've all come in a very different way, and it's not been it's a journey that can sometimes be uncharted. Okay, thanks.
And I think, Melanie, just one more thing to add in relation to, and especially how this, how we co-design with the public, how we involve public and patient in engagement and innovation as well. It's really important. Is it even more important with digital? So I think if we look at dissemination and we think of it's really important that we also seek other people's views and consider co-design. So this is a key aspect of the digital aspect. What I also I miss to add, and I know it can be a bit controversial, but I am going to to say it. I nowadays what we also, and again thinking of my journey, when I started this, I've completed 100 ZTOC forms when I started the research in 2009 to do a scoping review. Now that's no longer needed because we have the digital, so everything is online and we can just access. No need to go into the library per se and complete forms to retrieve papers. So things have evolved, and with this evolution, nowadays we have AI. So we should not dismiss it because it is here to help, but we just have to carefully use it. So in terms of dissemination, for example, I use Copilot, and it creates for me some beautiful graphics, and it creates for me infographics as well. So we also have Chat PDF that will allow us to kind of upload a paper and ask some specific questions. But again, with AI, and one of our colleagues put this really well, is a garbage in, garbage out. So it's really important that you are asking the right questions and to get the correct answers. But it is here to support us in the process. So we should not be dismissive of it.
Oh, thanks, Christina. Thanks, Gemma. Really important comments. And I think then, as they've eloquently said, is you must ensure that any research you do that is co-produced actually goes back to the participants, that you share with them the findings from your research, that they're part of that dissemination process, and also that they peer review the reports to make sure it's in a language that everybody can understand. So it's getting that feedback mechanism of, so, you know, how do people receive your work? We're very lucky that we have the ARC GM, the Applied Research Centres within Greater Manchester, and the new Research and Design Network. So they can help with dissemination of your research as well, and they have small pots of money and fantastic activities that we can actually tap into to get that support. So don't think that, oh, how do I do this? There is support out there with disseminating your research that's really, really important. Because one thing that in universities in particular is we then look to what's the impact been, what's the effect, what's the benefit, what's the change, either to practice, to professionals, to society, somebody's quality of life. So it's really important that we want to demonstrate that impact. And it might only be with a small group of participants, but the impact has been really significant. Or it could be a larger study that goes beyond where you work, because others want to replicate what you've done and implement it into their environments. So we do have a whole section on the importance of research impact and the benefit to others. And our final section of our research and innovation guide is about planning somebody's research and scholarly pathway. I think you can tell from the different stories that we've told is that many of us have fallen into research, so to speak, not literally tripped up, but fallen in because of a colleague, an activity, something's happened within our professional life that's led us down that pathway. So what we're trying to do is, again, leaning to the chief AHPs, the chief midwives, the chief nurses, is actually to start you to think earlier. We do it with our students. About the different kinds of way that you can have a research and scholarly pathway. It may be that, as like one of my PhD students, they're now on an innovator inventor pathway. We've got colleagues, obviously the professoriate here, but there's colleagues in clinical practice who want to become researchers and have started that journey. It may be like Gemma, you were an expert in the field and a consultant AHP, a consultant midwife, a consultant nurse. Or it could be that actually you're in practice education, or you're in a university, you're even in a college and you're teaching on pre-registration, pre-registration, that you want to develop innovations in teaching and learning, so that informs such like simulation, new pedagogical theory that impacts and develops students' knowledge, skills, attitudes and behaviours. So there's lots of opportunities for a really enriched, I call it a self-soothing kind of career in research and innovation. So it's really important for us that you have an opportunity now to see the Research and Innovation Guide website and also the downloadable format. So you'll see the QR code. It should be on the right hand of your screen, so you should be able to get your phone and take a picture. We will put the link in the chat in a few minutes. Obviously, from today's webinar, we'd really like you to help evaluate this webinar. So you'll see the blue words in the middle of the screen saying evaluation form. If you want to click on that, again, I'll put that in the chat straight away. And also the website itself and the R&I guide, we've put an evaluation form on that, because what we want to do is we want to know how, who are you, how are you using it, why are you using it, how you found it, and has it helped with the progression of your research and innovation activity, or made you really think differently about what you could do in order to change these fantastic projects that Carol was talking about, these service improvement, quality improvement, audits, all this essays that you write for different modules or programs, that we start to, in Greater Manchester, collectively turn them into evidence that's shared, just to demonstrate what a fantastic county, an area to work in, a conurbation that really contributes to the success of promoting better outcomes, better health, better living for the people we serve. So I'm going to stop sharing the slide now, and it's time for any questions. The questions bit, I think we'll turn off the recording, and then people can speak freely and turn the cameras on. So if that's okay, if one of us can stop recording, because I think it's just nice for people just to ask questions without feeling they have to do that. So thanks for listening. Stop sharing.
Sandra's got her hand up.